son, where did you find this?
Oh, welcome back, gamers. Today we're diving into some turbulent waters. The world of playing time. How much content is too much? How much is too little? And call us Goldilocks, because you can be damn certain we're going to find out how much is just right. But first, we've got to get into the news of the week. Connor, take us away.
Always interesting. It's always going to probably come back to something about EA or Ubisoft because they're just finding ways to find themselves in the news. And this week, it's going to be Ubisoft. It's your turn yet again. But Assassin's Creed Shadows coming out on Thursday.
Yes.
My apologies. Thursday, March 20th. Only a few days away, 5 days at time of recording. And this is a huge thing we got going here. And then on another side, Rainbow Six Siege goes free to play, and they're now shifting into Rainbow Six Siege X. So they're doing a lot of big things, trying to find a way to, I think, keep this company afloat, in my opinion.
There it is, because I was like, wait a minute here. It's one thing, there's a lot riding on this, to say the least. It's one thing to, launch a AAA title, but when you're in the position that Ubisoft's in, like, they did not have the greatest end to 2024, did not have the financial windfall they were looking for with Dragon Age and all that.
Yeah.
So now this is kind of it. And that's scary, but it's also like everyone that's been in the gaming world, been around it, could have seen this coming. I mean, they already delayed Shadows, like the launch. And originally, remember, it was supposed to come out on Valentine's Day?
Yeah, and there was a ton of controversy. Just a lot of, fan, backlash, stuff like that.
And it's been speculated because, like, that they moved it back basically to have no competition. Games don't typically launch in March.
Right.
So it's kind of like seeing a film launch in February. You realistically know there's probably not a ton of expectation of like a summer blockbuster. Same thing for games. Games, music, all kinds of entertainment media is centered around us as consumers.
Yeah, definitely.
And what we're going to like. So Ubisoft is really pushing this to give themselves space in order to have a really golden launch. They need it.
Yeah.
They cannot fuck this up. This might be it. If this underwhelms at launch, not even just, hey, it's a great game, but it didn't sell well, that could break them.
I 100% agree with you. I mean, this is, I think, the penultimate game that Assassin's Creed fans have wanted basically since post-OG Assassin's Creed, right? I mean, it's easy. You get Ninja Shinobi kind of thing. It's the perfect kind of segue into, what assassins do and kind of the quintessential assassins. So they don't have any room for error. They are up against a wall here, I feel like, to make basically the perfect game and pull just something kind of out of their ass and run with it. So,
yep, and you can see it in the move with the Rainbow Six Siege as well, where it's like where they're going to free to play.
Yeah,
and they're really these are things that are good, but it's taken way too damn long for Ubisoft to get to this point. It's like they've had to get desperate in order to just do the objectively correct things to do for your players.
This does feel like it was done in bad faith almost, right? There's been complaints from obviously the player base about Ubisoft. There's tons of joke names, about Ubisoft, and it's just, almost too little too late unless they can somehow find a way to make this, I mean,
well, I've also seen the stories that they're having discussions kind of on the down low with their own competitors. So like EA, Microsoft, they're talking about selling their whole portfolio, which has historically not been there. Whenever they've tried to do this, they've usually tried to maintain control. And that's what stopped it in its tracks every time. They had a deal with Tencent that fell through because the founders wanted basically total control. And Tencent's like, we're buying you. That's not how that happens.
Yeah.
And so this is kind of it for them. They don't really they're backed into a corner. There are not many options. I know EA and Microsoft are certainly going to keep their ears open, and whoever else, has seen the news. But do you really want to take on all of this work? For they've seen how the market's played out. Essentially,
Yeah.
they've seen all these other competitors. So it's tough. And on one hand, like I said, I want to feel for them because of the great games that have been produced from their studios.
Absolutely, yeah.
But they don't have a lot of goodwill built up.
No,
so
they have very shaky standing. I agree.
yeah, it is what it is. Anything else?
I mean, little lighthearted stuff. I mean, Mortal Kombat. We got T-1000 from Terminator coming in.
Woohoo!
You and I talked
Robert
about
Patrick,
it. You've
baby.
been telling me to watch some gameplay because there's some insane move sets and just just overall general Mortal Kombat wackiness, right? And they even got Robert Patrick to reprise his role as the T-1000,
Yes,
which is
sir.
pretty fucking cool. Like,
Yeah, that is so awesome. Robert Patrick's just a class act. He's an awesome guy, and just to reprise that role and really put your effort into it for a video game, that's so damn cool, man.
Yeah.
And yeah, I got to do the gameplay. Looks so cool. It's so awesome. Just I love shit like that. Keep that's one thing about the Mortal Kombat series. They can get a little wacky, and I love that.
yeah, I mean, most fighting games are super, super serious, and for obviously Mortal Kombat, extremely gory, extremely like in your face. But there is just some level of like almost whimsy as some guy's getting his spine torn out. But obviously you got Johnny Cage hitting the splits and punching a guy in the balls, which is just absolutely insane, right?
Glorious. So yeah, and we've got that, and in more lighthearted news, we've got Power Wash Simulator 2 that just got announced.
Oh boy.
For those who weren't drawn into the craze, power washing videos got real popular during the pandemic on TikTok, Instagram, the whole 9 yards. And it has now extended into the gaming world. Power Wash Simulator 1 was a huge success, and so this one getting announced, they're finding even more ways to make that game satisfying. And I've played the first one. It's pretty relaxing.
Oh, I have too. No, it's a good one. If it's like, hey, midnight, 1 a.m., can't really sleep, but don't want to go to bed. You're like, I'll just boot up and play Power Wash Simulator. Hour later, you're like, oh man, I'm ready for bed, man. This is
it's like its own version of ASMR.
Oh, absolutely.
It's just some good shit there. But we've got some fun things to do today. Like I said earlier, we're talking about playing time. So there have been debates. It's kind of happened more recently than ever, because I don't remember this being a problem ever before, to be honest, about having too much content in games. Usually you hear there's not enough, and that's nothing new.
Absolutely. People
saying, "Hey, I love this game. I wanted more of it." But when it comes to, there was just too much in this game, that it just honestly blows my mind when I hear stuff like that.
Yeah.
Especially from AAA titles where the norm is that we're getting shafted. We're getting a game that's not ready on launch and it's going to have to be updated later.
Right.
So to have a game be, it's just too much to do, that's a bit, it got me thinking. And so I strolled on over to the internet and said, okay, how many games, what's the story here? What's the pattern here? And luckily, howlongtobeat.com has every bit of information. This sounds like an ad. It is not. It has every bit of information that I could have wanted, because they've got every game on here. And I figured we could go through some games to look at, what's the norm for, how much content is supposed to be in a major title.
Right.
And I know major title has shifted, in terms of definition. I know we tend to think of AAA games, but I'm just thinking games that are worthy of mention, games of, Game of the Year style stuff.
Yeah. So before we dive in, to be honest, what in your mind did you think technically, like, what did you think is like the industry standard for a long game, right? Like, you kind of hear a game come out, what's like the amount of time you're thinking is like, okay, that's what I would expect it to be lengthwise.
Now,
just in general, I guess just not even now, just what you still would expect like a normal amount of time for a game to be, or like an RPG, something like that.
I mean, for me, the number that immediately sticks out in my head is 30 hours.
Okay.
And-
yeah, I'm 40, so we're right about the same. Where it's about a
Yeah, it's like 30 is kind of like if you just did nothing else but the main story.
Yeah.
That's what I would think.
Right.
I'd be sitting there. I don't know. I'd be okay with it. I'd be happy with it. And kind of going through. I've had this feeling of starting to track how long games are to complete, and it really started with Steam showing all of our hours.
Oh, yeah, man.
On
Definitely.
and some of them are shocking. Like, okay, we're gonna take. Speaking of shocking, we're gonna take a little side detour within this. Connor, pull up your Steam.
Absolutely.
I'm pulling up mine.
Here we go.
Here we go. We're gonna do this right now. This was not planned. So we're gonna show what is the longest game on Steam that you have in terms of hours.
Oh man, that's a tough one. I got 200. Baldur's Gate. Honestly, it's probably Apex. Apex Legends, I got 637. I don't think anything beats that for me.
Yeah. See, I've got 207 on Apex. I know that there are some hours missing because we used to play it on
Origin.
EA's app. But for me, Baldur's Gate 3, 864 hours.
Incredible. Honestly, I am always blown away when you tell me that. It's so impressive. But I love that you love the game as much as you do. I think that's incredible that you found something that makes you happy and you can constantly just drop back in and be like, hey, I saw this wacky build and I'm just going to go do it and see if it works, or, I'm going to try this crazy mod,
And the thing is like, you showed me this game. I would not have played.
That's true.
I would not have played if it wasn't for you. You were like, hey, you should check this out. I'm like, I remember thinking Baldur's Gate 3, I didn't play the first two. And you're like, irrelevant.
And then
Dive in. I'm like,
I remember you had been so snake bit since New World. Also, you're like, I'm just not going to pay money for these games anymore. I don't give a shit. New World.
I was not going to go.
You had such a bad taste in your mouth. I think you brought up New World. I'm pretty sure you're like, nah, New World, I'm not doing this.
New World and Monster Hunter Rise.
Fair. Honestly,
the two I always bring up because
fair.
I'm like, dude, I know New World. I think we paid like $40.
Sure, but still.
And then Monster Hunter Rise was the standard 60. But it was New World where I was like, man, we sunk in enough, time in the beginning of that game, and then it just yielded nothing. Like we both got burned down on it. And
yeah, for sure. It was
it did burn me a little bit. So I wouldn't have given it a shot if you didn't say something. And now it's like, oh my God, definitely top 5 for me. Almost made the top 3 from that, that episode we filmed. So close, so very close. And it might still at some point, honestly, with patch 8 coming out and running through, that story is just so replayable.
Mm-hmm.
And all I want to do is try new combos. Like you said, I will see shit on YouTube where it's like, make this version of a, whatever. Okay, I'm down. Let's try it. And it's just fun. Love that shit. And, okay. So we've got our 30 to 40 hours. That's what we thought, main story. Let's dive in a little bit. The reference I want to use here is the Golden Joystick Awards. Why them? Well, they're the second oldest gaming awards ceremony after the Arcade Awards, but they're still around. The Arcade Awards are not. So they're the longest running video game award. I know we all tend to think of Game of the Year. That didn't really start until 2014. So Golden Joystick goes back to 1983. And some of these games are going to be more arcade based, right? In the beginning, shooters, fighting games, hack and slash, whatever. Mm-hmm. I figure a great game to start with, right in the 1985 Gauntlet. That is by Atari Games. So, if you had to take a shot in the dark game in 1985, having what could be loosely be called a story,
sure,
how long do you think it take just playing the main story, nothing else? How long do you think?
Well, first off, it's crazy that you're telling me an arcade game, which I'm assuming, I pulled it up real quick on the side, platformer type, as any semblance of a story. I'm going to take a shot in the dark. I'm going to go a little bit bigger. I'm going to say 65.
Hours?
Yeah.
Okay, this is great. Okay.
There's something oh my God. See, there was something telling me for some reason. I was like, nah, go bigger this time. They're going to, you're going to look foolish and think that it's, no.
I know. It's
it was
the
the 80s. They wanted to show you something, they wanted to really tell you a story.
Yep, it was only 2 hours long. If
That
you
is
did
insane.
all of the side quests, though, like, because that's just main story, 2 hours. Main plus all the side stuff that you could do, 6.5. So that's where it jumps.
Wow,
Like,
okay.
triple. Apparently, if you want, now this is again, howlongtobeat.com. I did reference some of these that I picked out just to make sure that I was seeing some accurate numbers.
Right.
And everything matched up. So howlongtobeat.com does it is they give you the main story plus side quests, and then a completionist. If you want to be a absolute, full on, A+ degen, you got to go for the completionist run. And for this game, that's 17 and a half hours. So there's like Easter eggs involved. There's a lot of things. And this is a game from 1985, but in just the main story, 2 hours. Can you believe that?
I'd feel gypped, right? I don't know. It's just like you're sitting down, you're like, this game looks super cool. Obviously in the 80s.
Yeah.
Splash art looks cool. And to just be done in 2 hours, I don't know. Maybe that's, we weren't born in the 80s. We didn't have any frame of reference in that regard, but
sure. I mean, and look, in a similar game that came around the same time in 85, Super Mario Bros.
Okay.
That was also 2 hours, and that's it. That was the game. There's no secrets. There's no side quests in that.
Huh.
That literally a completionist only added a half hour. So this is a 2 hour game. And of course, again, it's 85. This is when I figured we'd see lower numbers. I didn't know we'd see them this low.
Yeah, I'm very surprised currently to see that they are this low.
So let's jump ahead a little bit. Game of the year by the way, Gauntlet was the game of the year for 1985, 1986. So let's jump ahead to 1990. Game of the year for 8-bit consoles was Mega Man. Mega Man came out in 87 in North America and Japan. And its story, again, we're now 5 years ahead. Or sorry, not 5 years, 3 years. Or 2 or 3. God, can I count? I don't know. I have had, there's a glass of scotch in front of me, as per usual, 3 fingers. We know 3-finger pours here at the Tryhards. And I did have a good luck rip of the old Penihana. So, we, there are some things at play here when I'm reading numbers. In the European Union, it came out in 1990. So I keyed in on that number. But, so 87, 3 hours. The whole game, 3 hours. And that's completionist. Main story, main side. There's nothing. That's it.
Incredible. Yeah, I'm honestly shocked that they are this long. I couldn't imagine playing something that's considered, I guess, a AAA title at that time in 3 hours. That's indie game stuff at this point. And those are just demos. You're like, here, try this out. You may get a full version if you guys like it. We'll see.
There was, what I'm seeing, early on is there was no, hey, I'm going to, really grind on this. I feel like what happens now is we're kind of expected to grind a game for, really dive in and see everything, which obviously tracks with what kind of graphics we're seeing, what kind of game worlds there are. Mm-hmm. This is obviously the 80s. Things are just beginning.
Yeah.
But just to see that it's like they put so much work into these are legendary titles at this point, and they were 2-3 hours long. That's and now you incredible. Played the game in a single day. Yeah. You could do that.
You played it in like you eat lunch and you're like, I'm going to hang out and I'm going to go on with my friends, go play in the yard. Like, it's crazy.
And that's the kind of shit where it's like, even if you jump forward Super Mario World in 1991, that is 5 hour long.
Wow.
Incredible. And that they did add some stuff in there. So if you did like a completionist, it was like 9.5. But still, like for these legendary games in the 80s and early 90s, it was just quick. You could beat a title the same day you got it and just be, what do I do now?
Yeah.
Of course, I tend to think that there. I know that like speedrunners and world records and people that want to just absolutely go crazy with games, they've always existed. It's why we have world records.
Yeah, it's super interesting. I'm not going to take that away from them. I think it's really cool to see a level,
great.
Being like, all right, level 1 Link, you find your way all the way to Ganondorf at the end, kill him, and you're like, oh, that's insane. It's incredible that there are these kinds of loopholes in games to do it, but yeah.
I love shit like that, but it's at the same time, I don't feel like that didn't become like a popular thing other than like seeing world records until
Yes.
the internet, where we were sitting there watching speed runs and stuff. And obviously it's very popular now. But back then you just played a game.
Yeah.
You know, you were just, and to have an entire game possibly be just a weekend, you know, on a casual weekend that you've been
Yeah.
waiting for this game, you know, on your Game Boy or NES or whatever, you know, it's just wild. So same year in 91, Sonic the Hedgehog, 2 hours. The very first Sonic the Hedgehog, 2 hours. Crazy.
Okay.
And so we died. Now let's jump a little forward to the back half of the 90s. This is where it starts to, it's again, we're not seeing like crazy numbers or anything, but for just standard games, it's starting to pick up. Crash Bandicoot came out in 96. That main story, that's 6 hours.
Okay.
Just straight across. And that's what I remember, you know, because that's not 6 hours straight. You're not, if you went crazy with it, sure, it could be 6 hours straight. But, you know, for most people, it's an episodic game, or, you know, the levels, you're going to put it down. And a completionist run for that game, 13 and a half. So it doubles the amount of content, or more than doubles. You know, if you want to do everything, get all the gems, get all the crystals, things like that. So wild that, you know, we're just starting to see an uptick, and we're now into the back half of the 90s. You know, you got like Resident Evil 2.
Okay.
So in 98, that's 6 hours with a
Yeah.
15 and a half hour completionist. So we're
Okay.
looking at, it's starting to get a little consistency, but still, you know, there's a whole other half, you know, of content, even more than half in these games. That's
Right.
pretty crazy if you think about the state of games today, which is like, you're lucky if you get a full title. Like you're
God, you're telling me, man. The amount of times I've been burned in the last, year, let's say like 2 years, I think. I think we had a really good
you're being
period.
generous. You're being generous.
for sure. I'm just thinking about the ones I've been most recently snake bit on, where I was just like, Dragon's Dogma 2.
Yeah, that's wild because I almost went in on that. I just wasn't quite as hyped because I didn't like it's not that I didn't like anything. It was more like I just didn't understand. I never played the first game. I was still, I needed to see more. And the
Yeah.
more that I saw, it was like, this might not be a game for me. Even though I really love the concept and I was really hyped for it before I started watching gameplay, it just became a thing where I was like, oh, the combat is totally fleshed out. It's amazing. Everything
Combat was
around it,
good. Yeah.
everything around it, like there is a story, it's kind of a make your own choice thing, but
Yeah, definitely.
it just didn't seem like it would have been for me, and it ultimately ended
No,
up not being
you
for
made
me.
you made the good choice. I'm gonna give you that for sure, because that's definitely one I wish. And then same thing. Dragon Age Veilguard. It's fun. It has
you
its
play that?
moments. I played it initially. I played it for a bit. The thing that's been pissing me off though is that every game, like, I get it. We're in the preloading shaders era because it's to help smooth out and
Jesus.
streamline playing games. But every time there's like a graphical update or GPU update for my graphics card, I have to go through this again. It takes almost like 3 hours, and I'm like, I'm not gonna just sit here for 3 hours waiting for this shit to load. So
It's crazy. Yeah, the shaders are a real, hassle. I remember starting to see those. It became apparent when we were still playing a lot of Apex, a lot of Warzone,
Yes,
where you'd log into those games, and it was like, shaders are part of this. You do not, there's no skipping or getting around this, unless you want to have a terribly optimized game.
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So yeah, we've got, let's see here. That was 98, right? Resident Evil.
Right.
Resident Evil 2. Let's jump ahead a little bit. Halo 2. This one, you'd think, hey, that was 98. There's been, 6 years.
Halo was
Surely.
Halo was out in 98.
No. Resident Evil.
Oh, thank God.
No.
I was like, holy shit.
No.
Where
Don't-
am I?
We're okay. We're it's fine. It was Microsoft, the Xbox. So this was 04 for Halo 2.
Okay.
So I'm saying 6 years from 98, you'd
Okay.
expect, we're going to start to see, and you do see a pattern, of increase, 9 hours for the main story in Halo 2. But we also know that the main story is not why you played Halo. It was fun. It was wonderful, but you also played to kick the shit out of your friends and
Yeah.
play, it was, again, just a ton of stuff. I remember, being back in the church I used to go to as a kid, there was a Halo 2, an Xbox in there.
The fact that you can play Halo 2 at a church is insane to me.
Right?
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know,
funny
man.
that made
It was a youth group. There was a lot going on. And, as a 6th grader at the time, I just thought, sweet.
I mean, that's bitching. That's exactly what you want to do after school. Play some Halo 2, man. Hell yeah.
And middle school boys. It's like, I was just sitting there. I was like, this is awesome. Okay, sure. But yeah, 9 hours for the main story, 21 and a half for the completionist run. So plenty of sides.
Yeah, now we're starting to get there.
We're starting to see, all right, we're in the 20s for hours. Let's jump ahead again to a pair of games that quite literally oh man, I love these games so much. They quite literally made, like, in terms of RPGs in immersion, love both of these games, Prototype and Infamous. Wonderful.
Very good games.
Wonderful games.
Very unique, and I don't know that we're ever going to get those kinds of games again, unfortunately. I mean, Prototype was insane. I think that is probably one of the big cult classic games. If you talk to people who really know games, that is kind of on their list. It was really fun. The story was really good. The character was a little... I forgot his name at this point. The character
Alex
was a
Mercer.
little edgy. Yeah, a little edgy, I'll give it to him. But...
He was.
Really cool.
I mean, that was 2009, both of these games. And you're looking at, like, that was the all of Manhattan or whatever, as the map.
But we started getting into open world exploration, right? So I guess there is some level of correlation with, like, all right, let's give these people a sandbox and let's let them run around. And, like, obviously it's going to start shifting times because you have so much to do.
Yep. But I see that this is their first real jump in gameplay hours, because it'd been growing steadily 1 to 2 hours every few years. Like I said, Halo was 9 hours, but this is 2004. So this is only 5 years later in 2009. It's 11 hours for Prototype, but a 32-hour completionist. So it's over almost triple the main story. And then the main story for Infamous is 15 hours to complete and 30 and a half hours for completionist. So significant jump for a game like Infamous, and which would lead to a great series for Sony and Sucker Punch. So both of those games, though, you start to see that jump just a little bit. That, like you said, there's open world now. There's more exploration that involved, and then I want to jump ahead here. So again, that was 2009. Now I'm going to jump ahead 9 years, and I do this for one reason. This was the game that kind of inspired this entire episode for me, in terms of I heard so many people talking shit about the length of this game, and there's too much to do, and oh my god, it was complaining, and I'm sitting here going, like, this game can't be that long, right? Is that what it is? Like, the main story is just fucking crazy, and there's nothing else, it just takes too long. Now, mind you, this is quite the jump, because what did we have in 2009? 15 hours. Now, this is an Assassin's Creed title, Assassin's Creed Odyssey. 45 and a half hours for the main story.
But, like, see, that is starting to hit the industry average of what we were expecting for a AAA game to be, at least, like, for that price point,
Yes, and this is where a lot of people, because now if you did all the side quests as well, you're hitting 85 and a half hours. So almost a double. And a full completionist run is 144 hours.
Okay.
So I can understand when someone says, this is ridiculous. There's so, oh my gosh, there's so much content in this, I just can't, wrap my head around it. Like, I want to get that, but when you look at the story, 45 and a half hours is significant. I'm not going to downplay that. But you're not playing this every day. You're picking this up, going through. Maybe you are playing every day. And even then, if you average, a few hours on this, you're getting, I would argue, your money's worth.
Agreed.
Especially these days.
Yeah. And I think that probably currently, of the new ones, I think that is the best of the, like, Origins esque Assassin's Creed games. There was a lot to do. It was really fun. I think the characters were really good.
Yeah, and don't get me wrong, like I know that there's a debate on like old Assassin's Creed model versus the new one, and this was, part of the newer RPG focus. I'm not here to get into that debate today.
No, correct. Yeah.
Maybe someday, but I can tell you right now that I'm just focused on the amount of hours sunk into this game, and 45 and a half sounds like kind of a sweet spot if you look at a full RPG where there's a story involved. This is not just a FIFA. This is not just
Apex,
some episodic.
Marvel Rivals. Yeah, you're not just.
Yeah, this is a story.
Mm-hmm.
And look, I know we're all used to entire series that you can watch and binging content, and that's where I feel like this kind of fits in with that. Is you want you kind of want to be able to binge it a little bit because. I mean, why not? When you can sit there and play, 4 to 5 hours at a time and not be, you're not all the way through the game in a single day like you were in 1990.
Yeah.
You just played a game and like read it like a book and put it down and that was it.
That's such an interesting way to put that. I've never actually quantified it that way, as if you're either reading chapters in a book or you're binging. I guess like that, the easiest way to quantify it now would be, you binge a series and how many episodes do you watch? There's 4 seasons, 12 episodes. It's 48 hours for the most part if they're hour long. It's the same stuff. That's so
same exact shit.
That's so interesting. Okay.
So to hear people complain about that's what kind of really got me, and just got me thinking about it, where I'm like, this can't be the argument. Like,
yeah.
Especially when, the main story is a significant amount of time, but you want that. I just paid $60 for this game at launch.
True.
Wouldn't I want, a lot of bang for my buck, especially for an Assassin's Creed game that, in a series that had to, add more and more and correct a lot of things and kind of revive itself from the dead at one point.
Yeah.
Like we mentioned, we got Shadows coming out that might be the end or a new beginning. We don't know.
Yeah.
It's just, I would want this kind of stuff. I would want this kind of time to really play this game and not just be able to beat it in, 10 to 12 hours, even though I have fond memories, right? Of all these games that we've talked about. I have very fond memories of Prototype and Infamous and Super Mario Brothers and stuff, but those are games that I remember shortly after playing them that I'm like, oh yeah, that's right. I can, dominate this. I remember playing, here's a game to pull out. Dragon Ball Z Boo's Fury, Legacy of Goku 3, technically. That game for the Game Boy Advance. I remember I found it recently.
That game was sick. Yeah, that game was awesome. I remember that. Yeah.
Amazing. So that game takes 10 and a half hours to complete, and it is apparent. And why? Because I wanted more from that game. I remember playing it and being like, oh shit, I'm like, this is it.
Yeah.
Because I know how the story goes. So I'm like, oh, this is Kid Buu. So this is it. I completed that? What the hell? And it's like, yeah, because even if you did a completionist run, which admittedly, I've only done that once, and that was as a kid, completionist is like 37 hours, but the main story, 10 and a half. So it's, you can run through that game pretty easily. And, that's when I think of a game that I wanted more from, it would be like that. But I still have fond memories of those types of games. Assassin's Creed Odyssey, I love, and I'm able to go in and play it a different way each time if I want to.
That's true.
Simply because there are so many options in the game and there's so much content that you can kind of work with that. You don't have to play the same way every time just to get through the story. So I appreciate games that have that level. That's a game from 2018. So
yeah. Okay. So I think this is a good jumping off point, I guess, to my points that I wanted to get across in this one.
Yeah, hit me with it.
So there is a lot to do in that game. Some of it does feel out of place, and some of it does make the world feel a little too spread out. Like, I liked, but I disliked the kind of ways you went about the Assassin's Creed portion, where you would find people, you would assassinate them, it would lead you to the top of the chain, and you cut the snake off the head of whatever certain group. Obviously, there was the mythological beast. I thought it was cool, but I don't know that it was Greek mythology, so it made sense for it to be there. But sometimes it felt just like it was there just to be there,
Well, you mentioned the map, don't you? I mean, it was Greece.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I'd look at that. If it didn't have a fast travel system, unplayable.
Yeah, absolutely.
Unplayable. But it does. So I kind of look at the map being, when people say like, even you're saying, hey, it might have been too big. It was kind of tough to travel between, those travel instances, when you had to first, track them down. I don't know. I kind of like that. That's just me though. But if it's got a fast travel system, I'm more forgiving.
Okay. That's fair.
That's the thing is like if an open world like that,
yeah,
and as for like there now this is a gameplay thing where it's like like you said, I don't want to give away too much for the people who haven't played it, but like the main people you got to go after in the game, if you spend your time, you can just run through them naturally just by exploring the world because you're going to see a lot of
which
these
was
characters.
cool. I did like the organic feeling of that, which was I
Me
think
too.
is, I think my main thing of a thing is immersive and just being like, oh my god, I'm on another side quest and I run into this guy. But I can understand from another player's standpoint that it's like, I'm on this mission, oh shit, now there's 3 other things as I'm running by that I could have to do. And I can understand that being overwhelming to an extent, because then it's like, I'm now being diverted from my original thing that I want to get done because I'm being pulled to do this because I should do it, So
yeah, and like I totally get where you're coming from in the sense that like, yeah, sometimes true immersion means you're waiting 7 minutes between on an automated trail on a horse.
Yeah,
like
sure.
Sometimes you just gotta get through the terrain in the world.
Mm-hmm.
So that can be, I feel like. If you think of a game like Assassin's Creed Valhalla, that's where I noticed that more. And maybe it's just because I enjoyed the world of, the in-game world of Greece more than England. But there was a lot of horse riding, a lot of river travel in Valhalla, and it started to become apparent in things like that. Whereas, so I can see, a little bit of that, but I don't know. I'm kind of on the side of like, give me more. Because, and I'm also one that I did the DLCs for that game, Odyssey. I did, everything. So maybe I'm not the greatest of people to ask because I did enjoy that game genuinely. And if you don't, then the game's going to be very long. But why are you playing a game you don't give a shit about then? So
you see, this is where now I'm going to play the devil's advocate because for the most part, I'm with you. I am like an RPG purist. I mean, I'm looking at the games that I played. I have 86 hours in Assassin's Creed Odyssey. I have not that many in Valhalla. I have 102 in The Witcher 3, So I like it. I like a lot of the exploration, but there are times where if there are good side, and that's I guess we'll divest to The Witcher. The Witcher has a ton of really interesting side characters. It makes you feel like a Witcher because it's like, oh, you just find a random like come hunt this monster type of thing. And because
that's what Witchers do.
Yeah, exactly. You feel like, okay, I am just Geralt of Rivia. I'm out here and we're just going to go and kill monsters. And then on the side, there's other Witcher armors you can go find. And that's like the little exploration type thing. So I guess I like having a few different things to do, but I like kind of feeling like I find it on my own and it's not. So, yeah. I like finding it on my own and like some level of organic, but not feeling like, oh, like target is here. You should get him here, but I'm also on my way to an outpost because I need to take it out because I need materials,
And this is where my ADHD might be a strength for for gaming because you get like a mission and you tell me that, hey, you can get sidetracked and do 8 side quests on the way to the main mission. I'm kind of all for that. So I guess I'm the wrong, or maybe I'm the most correct target audience for these.
No,
kind of
you
games,
are
I guess.
for sure. So you don't get burnt out? Have you ran into burnout with really any of these games? That's another thing I think to finalize. I think where this turns into is that you are doing so much that you just get burnt out because there's just a laundry list of items that you do in fact need to do.
Okay. When I think of a game that like I really went like full, not completionist, but like damn near close, was Mafia 3.
I haven't played those games.
Yeah.
I need to play them.
Big fan of the game. Okay, here's the thing. I love Mafia 3. Anyone listening that has played the Mafia series probably wants my head on a spike after that because Mafia 1 and 2 are like they're held up. And Mafia 1 is getting a remake. It's getting an actual full honest like remake coming up here. If it already didn't come out, actually. I say that and I'm like, wait a minute. When is it? So we got this was a while ago. Holy shit.
I actually have the definitive edition in my Steam library. I have not played it.
Yeah, okay. I'm stupid. I thought that I remember seeing it in the previews for it, like, this is coming down the pipe. This was the pandemic. 2020. That's how far back that came out. Yeah. But you know what? 2020 feels like yesterday, and everyone knows what I'm talking about. So, but I played Mafia 3, real big fan of that game, and I suggest everyone goes and plays it, especially when it goes on sale. You can get it for like, $5 to $10. Awesome game, especially if you haven't played the first two, which I had not prior to playing that game. Okay. So if you just want a good old-fashioned fun game to play that has if you don't want any connection to the first two games, it's great. There are some optimization things that when it first came out, it was kind of glitchy and whatever, but I think it's been fixed. It's what I expect a PlayStation 4, Xbox One title, or even, actually, I take that back. Like PlayStation 3, Xbox 360, that era, the Gen 3, it works. If you were to compare it to any title today, obviously you'd get the shit kicked out of it. But that's a 25-hour game. 71 hours for completionist, and I probably put in about 55.
Okay.
So I love that game. It has a lot of side quests, and I never got bored of that one. I have gotten bored of side quests before. I don't do a ton of side quests in Assassin's Creed Odyssey, for example. So I really just play the main story, or I'll play some of the parts of the game, like taking over regions of Greece. I love that stuff. It's not really a side quest so much as it is just part of the gaming, the part of the environment. But I never really did like a ton of the actual side quests, not unless I needed, something in the game for, and you know what? I'm actually going to tell on myself right now because I just remembered a key element to why I love Assassin's Creed Odyssey. I paid the $5 to get increased XP and money.
That makes a ton of sense. I liked Assassin's Creed. I didn't pay for that, but that makes a ton of sense because you were just
it just hit me. Egg on my face, dude. It just hit me because I was like, why did everyone say that game was too long? And I just remembered that the majority of the people were saying it was just took too long to grind.
It was grinding.
And then here I am like, hey, I did it.
Double XP, buddy.
It worked for me. You guys are just, I don't know. And lo and behold, I had cut it in half.
That's so
It was by 50%. 50% more. Like XP and
my God,
Drachmi.
Dude. Oh my God, I'm fucking dead. That's so
well worth it.
Oh no, 100%. I'm with you. Because I did beat Odyssey. I beat it in 86 hours. But I did burn out on trying to do everything else. I think I killed like one mythical beast. I think part of it was you did have to grind really hard. But I dislike the upgrade system. It just kind of all felt willy-nilly.
Yeah, and with that game for me, I remember I did a lot of the DLCs, if not all of them, and then I lost it when they went to like the time of the precursors, like the Isu.
Oh God!
And it was like fully in that world, and then I just didn't care about the story anymore. At that point the game was all side quests, and I was like, nope, I'm out. But still, like, played a significant amount of that game. Again, we're harping on this one a lot, but if you go a couple years further, things drop off. Like Cyberpunk 2077, that's only 25 and a half hours.
Yeah, I mean,
Well, if you add the side quests in, it doubles.
No, that one's crazy. Okay, so I did find something where you had a little sliding table. Basically, if you were just 3 hour a day, it would take you 8 days to complete the main story, but 34 days to complete the whole game if you did everything, which is a pretty insane split.
Cyberpunk?
Yeah. If you played 3 hours a day. Yeah.
Oh shit. Yeah. Okay. See, but I don't know, man. I kind of love that. You know, like,
No, I think that's great. I think Cyberpunk is probably one of those games for all the shit that it took on its initial release, for how they managed to bounce back. That world does feel very alive. I think it has very unique characters, so it makes a lot of these side stories really interesting. And like obviously the side mission type stuff, like finding the cyber psychos. Like there is actually a lot of cool stuff in that game. A lot of the legendary weapons are super unique. So they did a good job of, I think, making that game worth the time investment. Whereas I think a lot of these other games, I'm not seeing like a full on level of getting fulfillment out of being a completionist. The main story may be really good, but then a lot of the other stuff, you're like, I can just kind of drop it. Who really cares, you know?
Sure. And now, I mean, because now we're in the modern era of gaming, you've got, I think it's starting to normalize again, because there was a period of time where it was just the open world renaissance and everyone wanted to jam in a bunch of, and that's why, like, there's a lot of games that felt empty at first, like No Man's Sky.
Sure.
And
absolutely.
And things like that. Where, you know, I think that everyone kind of got a little spooked. And I say everyone, I mean the game developers got spooked with that, so they wanted to kind of bring it back to a more, you know, manageable game. Because you've got, like, let's see, Elden Ring is a bad example.
I was gonna say that's like 46.5 if you want to complete the main story, right?
They've got it at 60.
Yeah, there's
so
a lot to do in that game.
Yeah, that, and if you do the side quest, that tacks on another 40, so we're at 100 hours. Completionist is 134 hours. That is a long game, but that's what you expect from, you know, from software. You know,
yeah,
like
100%.
You want something like that. They've established themselves like that, where, you know, you go to a very recently, you know, a release title, Monster Hunter Wilds. That game, 16 and a half hours.
Oh God. And we're going to go off the rails here. That was 16 and a half hours. God, I hate, there are some characters in this game that I just can't fucking stand. I can't fucking stand them. All right. I've played pretty much the entirety of the main story. That kid Nada is the worst. The worst. He is so poorly written, and you're just like, for being an integral character, I'm just like, God, can this kid, can I turn my back and maybe a monster just sweeps him up and we never see him again? That would be fine with me.
Is it the same story? Like, I'm a little like, hold on, because like
it is, I think, a continuation of Worlds to some extent.
I was going to say, because Worlds and Rise kind of started off the same way.
Rise, I think, is different. Rise, I don't think, is involved in that universe the way World and Wilds is. Yeah,
I'm not up on the lore with Monster Hunter, so
to be honest,
Worlds,
I'm not either. Just give me a gun lance and let me go hit something in the goddamn face.
Yeah, I'm the insect glaive myself. I do enjoy playing those games. And maybe this is just on me as a, you know, I'm just a selfish gamer. I wanted more longevity out of like World and even Rise to an extent. Whereas like I know these games take a little while to make, but when I'm playing duplicate missions, you know, a couple of years apart, I don't know, man. Like, it's a little tough for me.
100% agree with you. I think that is unfortunately my biggest gripe, I guess, with Monster Hunter, is that, like, man, you can play the absolute shit out of this game. I can play this game probably 8 to 12 hours a day on launch, and then after that, it's just like, all right, I feel like I've done everything. I'm good. Like,
yeah, that kills me. And that's the shit where I'm like, do I want to drop $60 or $70 now on, you know, even though I want to play with you guys? I have so much fun when we all, like, when we got Rise for the first time. We were playing like crazy. And there have been other examples. I don't want to just pick on Monster Hunter. Plenty of games that we've bought and we just sunk initially a good amount of hours into, and then never again. And it was kind of like, oh man. And that's on me, I guess, or us in general.
That's on us, I think, because obviously Monster Hunter is a supremely popular title. The gameplay loop for it just doesn't do it.
It can be, yeah. And look, it's okay. don't, if you're going, that's bullshit.
This is not the
fine.
gospel. This is just two guys who've been playing video games for a long time together and just have our own opinions.
We look there. We know a few of our friends that are just insane at the Monster Hunter games.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, and they run through it like a hot knife through butter, and they get to the meat of like really getting achievements in games and things like that. And you know what? If you love this series, great. You know, I genuinely enjoy it. I just find I don't enjoy it enough to sit there and, you know, every couple of years being like, am I hitting the Rathanos again? You know, like, I don't know. There's just certain things that are like a little repetitive, but again, maybe it's just not for me.
The
But
duality
that's
of
still,
our podcast host, right? Obviously.
yeah.
Give him some side quests. Give him some little nooks and crannies to fucking dig around into. He'll spend 800 hours in it. Give him too many Rathalos in a row. He's off of it in a week, you know?
Oh, I said Rathanos too. That's embarrassing.
Hey, it shows you're not a hardcore monster player, and I respect you for that.
It's just, you know, I look at when I play like Baldur's Gate 3, when it was clearly like 860 fucking hours and stuff. Look, that's not, some of that is the computer being just left on a.
We'll take
screen.
what you've told me your fair number that if you were to take, what was it, like 25% or something?
No, it wasn't even. It was like probably 10. So like, but and that's like actually maybe even lower if I'm being honest with myself, because I'm looking on the 80. That's 86 hours of just sitting there. Fuck no. I think it's probably like 40 hours all added up, because I was going in. Like, I've played the shit out of this game, and I love it. I love finding it. I never walked away empty-handed when starting a new campaign with Baldur's Gate 3, and that's crazy to me. The fact that I can go into every single one and go, oh wow, I learned something new on this. Just shows you it was so intentional of a game. Like they really put some love into it. But yeah, so like we're in this and speaking of which, Baldur's Gate, what is the hour? What are the hours on that? 71. Okay, 71 for the main story. That makes sense.
Absolutely.
Given the pacing of the game.
Absolutely.
Simply because like combat can take a while. There's a lot to research and look around rooms. That makes sense because you're thinking of Baldur's Gate 3 as like mirroring a tabletop RPG, but a little quicker. Mm-hmm. So yeah, that makes sense. You know, with a completionist of 170 hours. So yeah,
that actually
totally.
170 hours for a completionist actually sounds crazier than 71 hours to complete. To be completely honest with you, that's actually you would expect it. I would expect it to be like probably 200, but you know,
yeah. I guess so. Yeah,
because there just is so much to do.
Hours, like, there is, and I guess you gotta look into what they consider part of just the main story. And again, this is based off people essentially speedrunning it, or not even speedrunning, but just going through the story, only the main story and only the sides and all, you know. So there are different. There are going to be different, you know, levels to that. I just think, like, I think our assessments are kind of right. I would like to see generally 30 to 40 hours, depending on the style of game. I know I'm not sitting here saying, you know what, I really, you know, they just remade Tetris. I better get 40 hours out of that. If I play 40 hours of Tetris, kill me. Like, are you kidding me? Like, no. That's at that point, I've lost my mind. I've gone insane. And I'm in a minimum security prison somewhere, and that's the only game that I'm allowed to play. And I'm not talking about those kind of games where clearly it's only one element to it or a couple of elements to it.
Yeah.
I'm talking about like AAA titles, usually RPGs, but not necessarily. They can be all kinds. I better get some hours out of this.
No, I'm
even
with you.
With the like Apex and Valorant and all that. Yeah, I do. Like, if I'm going to spend even just my time, investing my time into it, I want to get a good return. So it has to be, you know, there's obviously, it's got to be fun. Like, you got to want to play the game. I'm not just going to sit there and like power through just to on principle.
Absolutely,
like, wow, this sucks, but I've got 60 more hours until I've hit my profit ratio. Like, no, it just, when I hear originally people saying though, like, oh, there's just too much content in these open world games, and there's too much to do, that you don't have to do it. You don't have to do it. That's the thing. It's like all these side quests, you don't have to. And I would much rather, it's kind of like that saying, right? I'd rather, have it and not need it than need it and not have it.
Correct.
I'd much rather, because you know what? That just hit me instantly. A game that I was really, really hyped for. So excited for. Dragon Ball Z Sparking Zero, which is essentially Budokai Tenkaichi 4. But it's in Japan, it's just the Sparking series. So that game, Sparking Zero, I was super pumped for. And one thing I took for granted was that it was going to have a robust single player, because every single title before that had one.
Mm-hmm.
It had, and mind you, you may be sitting there going, you really wanted to play the same story that you've played for 20 years again? 2 points. 1, fuck yeah. It's an awesome story. 2, I do want to see it updated. It would have been like 10 years since the last game came out.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah. I do want to see how things interact. And again, it's a story I grew up with. Why not? I still want the option. I looked at the reviews because I was ready to get this game. And there are a lot of people that were just keyed in on the online play and the matchups.
Which was
cool.
what it was made for, let's be real. It was made to be an online fighting game.
That's the thing, is it was made to be an online fighter. And that caught me off guard, because I was like, wait, there's not a story mode. Not for real. Not a real one.
Yeah.
In this game, they skip through a lot of parts. There's not a lot of there's a lot of stages that don't make sense for the story, so they couldn't you couldn't go and play through a lot of things. It's just kind of a very, very light version of a story mode, and then the vast majority of it is just this server for people to go in and one-on-one matchup. I gotta be honest with you. I love those games. I suck at them in terms of competing online with other people.
The skill cap for fighting games is unfucking believable. I tried playing Guilty Gear. I tried to get into a fighting game arc. Tried playing Guilty Gear, and then you just see man, I'm gonna have to play this game for at least 200 hours to be able to start giving somebody the actual work if I wanted to. So
yeah, so I routinely ran into that, with a lot of games in the past. So I'm like, okay, I'm just not as good as these other people. I can accept that. That's fine. I see, like you said, I see the amount of hours I would need to just be in the realm of competing.
Yes.
And it's like, damn, I just wanted to play this game for fun. And that's where I'm like, yeah, I'm still going to partake, but I was hoping for a more robust single player. And single player has been kind of decreasing for games that are more online. They tend to focus on the online aspect.
I mean, there was a
Jujutsu
Kaisen game where it was all story, but then there was a weird PvP mode. And I think they put more into the PvP mode than they did into the actual, because I heard the story was awful. I'm not really interested in playing it. But they had a PvP mode, and that was supposed to be the big thing. So I definitely
the
see
story being awful in Jujutsu Kaisen. Okay, I'm sorry. I'm at the end of the story. So people that just go on the anime, they've got a lot to come. A lot to watch. But old JJK letting me down. I hope it won't let others down, but it certainly let me down. But yeah, these games, it's tough, man. I can't get into when it's if it's built for online play, I'm going to get my ass kicked. I know this. At my best, I'm a silver, low gold player. I get it. Any ranked, I know where I am. I know where I live, and that's okay. But I would like some kind of help in the single player department, because I'm not always just ready to throw down. It's like, dude, it's a Tuesday night. I just want to chill.
Yeah, but that's also, I guess, where the content has deviated from, is to keeping people in a shorter gameplay loop, because either people don't have enough time, people don't have the attention span, people just generally aren't interested in kind of having something that's more story-driven, where you can just be in a world and be someone that exists in it, and now it's more just about, I guess, competition,
well, wait a minute.
or just, doing that kind of
But
shit.
but what about I mean, like, don't the existence and like the popularity of these other games, like take Jedi Survivor. That's still like, what's that? 21 hours. It says 21 hours in the main story. That makes sense. 54 hours for completionist. Like,
That's actually
the existence of these
very-
games. There's
yeah.
no online for this, right? So it's like the existence of these games has got to confirm like that the market is certainly there. Why are these titles suddenly just? Why can't you do both? Is my question. I understand that there's so much that goes into these games. There are resources untold in terms of personnel and time and money. I get all that. But it kind of blows me away when you take a game, especially a game that comes out kind of like not so much like half finished, but like glitchy, things like that. When there's only online to focus on, you're like, what were you guys fucking working on this whole time? It really is an it can't be this unoptimized and then also be missing, a significant portion of what I would consider to be a good portion of the game. I don't know. I just think that there's like, why are you leaving out half my game? I guess is what I'm saying. Like, why am I playing Battlefront 2 with no fucking story mode? Are you out of your mind? It's fucking Star Wars. Like, how is that happening when you've built up the game in such a way and then you just deviate and go right to, you'll just sit there and play online in online battles all day. Like, I guess
that is another story for another episode. That I feel like we've set up a great episode, to be honest with you.
True.
'Cause,
Yeah, it's true. All right. Thank you so much for hanging with us on this one. As always, we are the Tryhards, and we are just so thrilled to be doing it. Recording this and just having a great time. Again, we're contemplating going week to week here, so you'll obviously be the very first to know. But until next time. And by the way, the next one's going to be a fantastic episode. We're going to get into the heart of MMORPGs, baby.
Oh, my bread and butter.
We're going full bore. So that one is going to be very fun. We look forward to recording that one. But until next time, have yourselves just a drink and a wonderful, wonderful weekend.